So we're in the Talbot Express and we've got a bit of a problem. The blind stroke neck curtain stroke fly screen, it's not latching in here. We like this when we bought it, and basically it makes this lovely rattling noise. So what I'm going to take this apart. There is a little screw under there. It's not difficult to do, and I think I've got a solution in mind. I'll just give these a bit of a clean with some, I actually used pink stuff, but I think any cream cleaner would be good, and possibly something else. And they've come up great. I'm quite pleased with them. They're looking nice and clean. There's a bit of residual dirt in there. I just carefully used a sponge in there just so not to flex them too much. I think they'll take a bit of flexing, but I don't want to break them. After all, they're about 30 years old, these. So I've noticed there is a screw just there, a little Phillips screw which holds this in place. So what I'm going to do is remove this from the good side and remove the other one. Incidentally, these are actually handed, so I've got two right hand sides, so just bear that in mind. When you're facing the window, it's either the right or the left. So if you take a side off like I've done to repair, you need to stand in front of the window and take the same side off, whether it be on the right or left. So I'll just unscrew this and do the same with the other one. We now have the good one on the right hand side, and I'll just rotate that so you can see the hook, and then the damaged one, and it looks like we're going back to do a little more cleaning. So what I want to do is recreate that on this. I've got an idea in mind to do that. We'll see if it works out. So I've got a piece of scrap card here, and this one actually is from some Cherry Bakewell, so I'm hoping this will be an exceedingly good job. And I've just traced around it with a nice sharp pencil. I took care to hold the pencil at around 45 degrees to the work. So here comes the tricky bit. So when my dehumidifier was scrapped, I took it in pieces, and I did set aside a bit of plastic. And this plastic is quite hard in its nature, which does match the stays for the blind fly screen, etc. So I think this will be suitable for the repair. What I want to do is cut a shape of plastic out and then use some good adhesive to bond it. Well, I've cut the end off, and a few problems are coming to me. It's quite a tiny, you can see my fingernail there, it is a very tiny thing to cut out, but it is essentially needed. I've cut one out in red just to make it a little bit more visible, so you see the problem. What I'm thinking about doing with this edge having a lip on is maybe exploiting that, so maybe take it out of there. I'll pick the straighter edge. I'll maybe neaten it up with a file, just so I can maybe nip that up in the vise, and then once I've got the rough shape of it, just one quick cut underneath. That's where I'm at with it, so we'll see how that goes. I've traced round this, and just move it over. One thing what's concerning me is the hook shape. There's quite a bit of definition in the original hook, and I don't seem to have that here, so I'm going to be very careful to recreate that. I'm hoping I can find a needle file I have in the arsenal, but we'll see. So the first cut, I'm going to cut down there full length, and then the second cut I'll cut that across, and then we'll maybe get in with a file and a saw or a combination of both, cut that out, and I'm going to leave it attached to what's left of this piece of work just for stability, and the fact that you can grip it in a vise if need be at the bottom to maybe file the shape. So I've been at this in the vise and cut the left no problem, and I did actually discover a new, well, a tool which you wouldn't think to use to cut plastic, which works really effectively for this cut. I think I'll finish off with that. And I've just gone in there with the junior hacksaw and cut some grooves in it, so that's quite a fiddly bit. This is what I've recreated. I think it is dimensionally ever so slightly larger than this original, and I think that is the thickness of the pencil reflecting. So what I actually cut that with, the plastic, is some tin snips used for cutting metal. And to get this curve, I couldn't find the needle file unfortunately, so I used a 5mm drill, and we had the drill rotating on it. But I wouldn't recommend that technique. You'd be much safer with a needle file. It needs must. So what I'm going to do is cut that and buff it all up with some sandpaper to make the surfaces nice and rough. So I've just aligned my work up with the intact side, and I have strayed ever so slightly. Definitely there at the tip, but I don't think I've strayed anywhere that matters. We've got the shape, what we need to operate it, intact, so I'm going to glue that up. I always find before applying any adhesive, one of the best things you can do is actually work out how to hold your work in place before you apply any adhesive, and then once you've got that in mind, it makes life a little easier and a little cleaner. Given we're going for an exceedingly good job, I'm going to be using JB Weld, which is probably overkill for this job, but I don't have any basic epoxy resins, i.e. 2 tubes that you mix equal quantities together. I don't have any of them in the house. I have to go get some at some stage. We've got the clamping method. Now I'm going to try something a little different. You tend to get these cheap tubes of super glue, you know, at pound shops. And I don't know if this is going to work, but I've got no faith in this to hold it together permanently. But the instant grab bond is useful. So what I'm thinking about, if I can achieve it, is the bulk of the repair in JB Weld with a little blob of super glue just to instantly nip it together to maybe save using these grips. I've never done this before, so I don't know how it's going to work out. Equal quantities of JB Weld or epoxy resin, and I'll just give them a mix up. I prefer to use a little screwdriver because it's quite sharp. You know, if you're working it into anything, you can score it in, which improves the adhesion. So we've mixed up the JB Weld, and I've left a little groove in the middle for the super glue. And this piece is more or less covered apart from the corresponding part to the groove. And one good thing about using the epoxy resin is you can just leave the excess, you know, to one side to dry, and then you've got a barometer on your workpiece as to how strong the bond is on the glue, which is quite useful. This will take a couple of days, but you can get epoxy resins that'll cure in anything between 5 and 15 minutes. So I've just punctured a cheap pound shop super glue. Let's put there's quite a bit on there. I'll go for the bond. See if this works. I just want to double check it's something right before I press it. Don't want to end up in trouble. Well, I think we'll call that a success. Nothing's moving. It did move ever so slightly then. Good news is it is held in place enough to form a good bond without me needing to use the grips on it. Yeah, I quite like that method. I think I'll adopt that in the future. Well, thanks to the instantaneous grab properties of the super glue, we're now able to reassemble both units, and you see the original there and the copy there. I'll just show you them both in shot at the same time. And I'm not too far apart there. This is actually slightly lower, the one for the fly screen. And one thing I want to share with you is these strips here just slide in and out. That'll make it a little easier for cleaning. So as that's just slightly leaning away, I think I'll put some grips on that, just to be doubly sure we've now got it gripped in place. So I'll keep an eye on that. I don't want it drifting. Hopefully the super glue's got it. So we're back in my Talbot Express Autoquest 320, if you were wondering. And I've done a bit of research online and found out that these blinds are what are known as SEITZ, S-E-I-T-Z blinds, and this is probably an obsolete blind because I did try and get a replacement but no luck. So we've now got that in place. We've got the super glue holding it with the JB weld. The JB weld probably hasn't cured yet because it's been 24 hours. But for the meantime, I'm going to rely on the super glue. So I'll just pull the fly screen down and see if it latches. And yeah, it does. And it's quite robust. It's not coming off in a hurry. I'm just giving it a bit of a wobble here just to see if it comes off in transit. So I'm going to call that a successful repair. Many thanks for watching, and why not subscribe to learn of more repair possibilities.